In Algeria earlier this week, demonstrators and security forces clashed in the capital and other towns. The anger came over paying up to 30% more for basic food items. Joining us now on the phone from Rome is Abdolreza Abbassian. He is the senior economist at the UN Food and Agriculture Organization. Thanks so much for joining us this morning. We know that the UN put a warning out on Friday that millions of people are at risk. We know that food prices are hitting a record high. Is there anything that can change your forecast?
Well, what we put out was what happened in December with just looking at the average prices at the international level, and they are basically very close, if not slightly higher than the peak we had in 2008. So basically that was a warning in itself that at least the international prices from a global angle, we are entering a very precarious situation, and obviously the food importing countries and vulnerable countries are subject to a great risk. Unfortunately, for the time being, we do not see any good news coming in either from the crop side, like we saw with USDA reports yesterday, nor from a weather angle, as we see in Australia and dry conditions in Argentina and parts of Brazil. So I think that with these problems, it's really difficult to see how things are going to turn for any better, at least in the coming months.
So you feel like we could see just as bad a situation as we saw back in 2008 and or worse?
Well, in terms of prices, we are already there, and it is possible that the situation gets worse. In terms of actually having instability and crisis, as we had seen in many countries in 2007 and 8, we hope. We all hope that it won't happen. There are also a lot of other factors at play, and not to including, in fact, what's happening in individual countries. So one should not really speculate on that, and we hope it won't happen. But in terms of prices, certainly this is not a very comfortable situation for many countries.
Now, you're an economist by training, we know. Is there anything that some sort of global organization, the UN included, could do to somehow handicap how much money investors can make from these rising food prices? Because for investors, this seems like a good situation, right? They can make money from these rising commodity prices. The flip side, though, is people starving and social unrest. Is there any way to handicap that situation?
Well, I think there is no intention of handicapping anything that will slow down inflow of investment into any sector. If money made actually makes it back to the sector, it can also help, and it can also feed the hungry. The problem is that increasingly we notice that some money coming in for no reason than just profit and then leaves. We can call them sort of like investment tourists, if you want. And for that, right now there is no mechanism. What is really needed before that is really to study this market and see whether at least we could bring food, let's say, sector markets closer to what we already have in the equity markets in terms of rules and regulations and transparencies.
All right. And one last question here, Abdolreza. How much does this have to do with the weather? How closely? I know we've been speaking a lot about the flooding in Australia, for example. When I asked you earlier, is there any hope that better weather can change the situation?
Well, it has a lot, especially this episode. It has a lot to do with the weather. We had it since the last summer in Russia and all the way through now in Australia. And this will be also, I think, the main driver in the coming months. Right now, I have very little good news to share with you. We have actually dry conditions in southern Russia still. We have quite a cold and dry conditions in very important growing areas of China. And we have seen just now that U.S. had, cut down on the yields, especially for corn, but also slightly soybean. When we have very tight stock-to-use ratios, which means we actually need a very big increase in production in 2011 to make up. And really, with all the things that we have in front of us, I think that it is getting increasingly, I would say, concerning and worrying as to how much we could get production increase out of this very unpredictable and often unfavorable weather outlook.
Abdolreza, thank you so much. Abdolreza Abbassian joining us there from the UN Food and Agriculture Organization.